Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at the first devblog of the next major update season, and it is for Britain. It's the Chieftain 900, and it's coming in as a rank 6 vehicle for the good old British tech tree, a standard vehicle, so not a premium, not an event vehicle or anything, just a standard vehicle for the tech tree, which is fantastic, especially after the Shir 2 and also the Khalid, which turned up. The Chieftain 900 is an improvement over the Chieftain Mark V. It's improved the engine, but also a few other factors too, which we're going to have a look at in this video, and also just talk about its gameplay and how it's going to feel. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Let's get into the history of this vehicle. In the 1980s, 20 years after the first Chieftains appeared, Royal Ordnance Factories, or ROF, looked to improve and modernize the aging Chieftain tank for potential domestic use in the UK and as an option for export. They focused on improving the weakest areas of the Chieftain, its overall mobility, engine power, and also armor. To do this, they looked to add Chobham armor and improve the mobility with a 900 horsepower Rolls-Royce Condor engine. They also added a better transmission and suspension and topped it off with some updated electronics. 2 Chieftain tanks, which were built for an Iranian order but were cancelled due to the fall of the Shah of Iran, were modified for the project. The pair of prototypes were completed in 1982 and shown at the British Army Equipment Exhibition, or BAEE. Despite the ROF marketing brochure material suggesting the addition of new Chobham armor, the 2 modified tanks were never actually fitted with it, so the tanks had mock-up metal cladding to show how the Chobham armor package might look like had the armor actually been mounted. Ultimately, ROF received no orders for the Chieftain 900, leading to the failure of this private venture and the cancellation of the project in 1986. Of the 2 Chieftain 900 prototypes built, one, serial 56MS09, was sent to Marconi, who carried out internal modifications, which now resides at the Tank Museum. The other, serial 56MS78, went to Lulworth Ranges as a practice target. Part of it survived, however, and was used later by BAE Systems to test other Chieftain improvements. So what's interesting about this article is it continuously compares the Chieftain 900 to the Chieftain Mark V, mainly because it is improved from the Mark V, but I think a better comparison to it is actually the Mark X, because the Mark X has some of the other improvements that the Chieftain 900 has too. It has the laser rangefinder, and it also has access to the APFSDS, which this vehicle is going to get. It gets the L23 APFSDS alongside its APDS, HESH, and smoke round, so you probably have to deal with the APDS as a stock round, but you will eventually get the APFSDS, which is pretty powerful on this 120mm cannon. And with the laser rangefinder, it means that engaging from range should be quite interesting. I always remember with the Chieftains, there was a funny changelog a few years ago, which basically all it did was improve the accuracy of the gun, because for some reason the Chieftain's gun was very inaccurate, even with all of the different modifications, but nowadays it's laser accurate and incredibly good. But the main improvement of this over the Mark X and also the Mark V is the engine. The Mark V has a 760 horsepower engine, which is obviously a marked improvement over the Mark III, but now the Chieftain 900 has a 900 horsepower Rolls-Royce engine. This means that it could go up to 52 kilometers an hour, which is really nice, and also with the improved transmission, should be able to go forward and backwards a lot better. You can actually see these types of improvements with something like the Khalid, for example, which has markedly better mobility than the Chieftain Mark X, which is in the tech tree. So what you're basically getting from this is a more mobile Chieftain, whereas the Chieftain Mark X is a more armored Chieftain with the steel brew armor. And so for me, I think this is actually going to be better than the Mark X, just because at those BRs right now, mobility is much more favored compared to the idea of additional armor, which can still get penned by DM33, which is the main round around those BRs anyway. So the additional kind of armor on the Chieftain 900 is not exactly great. Basically, it's something which will add some angled protection, meaning that there'll be some ricochet points that are on it. What's interesting on the whole is they've actually modified it into like this pike-nosed idea, which is very similar to a lot of the Soviet heavy tanks. The IS-3 or even like the T-10 has a similar look, but the thing is, it's not really additional armor. You still have the hole where the driver is, you still have the lower glacis, so I don't think that's going to really make any difference. And then also with the turret as well, you have this very angled armor, which looks a lot more modern compared to the standard Chieftain, but I don't think it's going to offer that much extra protection. So basically, it's a Chieftain that looks a little bit more like a Challenger, kind of like the Shear 2 in a way, apart from the Shear 2 is more evolved along the line of it. And it's kind of cool how we're seeing these kind of iterations of the Chieftains, which show how it morphed from what it was into the Challenger itself. And it's nice to have another kind of piece of the puzzle where the designers and also the engineers were working on these things. Now for me, I really enjoy the Chieftain. I think the Mark III was very fun. It's a vehicle that you have to play in a very specific way just because of the speed. The Mark V is obviously slightly better just because of the increased speed. And the Mark X is probably in the roughest place just because the upgrades that it gets access to don't really necessarily put it at a nice BR because once again, its mobility is an issue. So with this Chieftain 900, I'm hoping that that's solved. I'm hoping that it'll be in a much nicer place because of the fact that it has this enhanced mobility, which is one of the big things that happens with a lot of these vehicles at higher BRs. As you go up in BRs, more mobility is king. And that's why you have a lot of kind of NATO MBTs with the 1500 or the 1200 horsepower engines, which are incredibly mobile around the place and also with really nice transmissions and also great reloads. You know, the Abrams is a fantastic vehicle, which is very much overlooked just because of the fact that sometimes the teams fall apart, but the actual vehicle itself to play feels really nice, apart from the turret changes that they made in the last little bit. But with this Chieftain, with the laser rangefinder, with the APFSDS, with the upgraded engine, it'll be great. It'll work fantastically well, just like all of the other Chieftains do. It's really funny when I look at my stats for the Chieftains, because generally, at least like the KDs and also the matches are pretty good, but the issue is always the win rate. I don't know what it is about them. Maybe it is the fact that you can't make as much of an impact with them just because of the speed, and you end up playing a much more defensive role with them, and you can't ever kind of counterattack or push. Maybe the 900 will solve that, and it will sort it out. What I've always really wanted, though, in the game is the Chieftain Mark 11. The Mark 11 is basically just the Mark 10, but with a thermal, so I don't know why that has never kind of turned up, but instead, I suppose we get one of the vehicles that is a bit more interesting in terms of the 900. At least it looks different, even if it's going to play much the same. Now, the other thing that'll be interesting to see is the reload. The Chieftain actually has one of the worst reloads at these BRs, mainly because it has the 120mm and also the 2-piece ammunition. It gets out reloaded by pretty much every other gun that's around this BR, and the other part as well is a lot of other 120s have actually had massive amounts of improvements when it comes to their reload compared to other vehicles. So I wonder if the 900 will also get itself a better reload or not. We'll have to see as it goes on. The armor, though, will be kind of interesting just because of the angular nature of it, but I don't think it's going to stop anything. I think it will just go straight through. There's also something else to also mention, is the machine guns on this. So it actually loses its 12.7mm from the Mark V, which I'm pretty sure was like the ranging gun on it for the HESH, but it's really not going to make a huge difference because that gun, you know, you didn't really ever use it too much. You basically had the 7.62mm on the roof, then you also had the 7.62mm MG above the main gun too. So that's what's going to stick about. You lose the extra machine gun that was just kind of there to try and accurately fire HESH. And as we've talked about many times, don't fire HESH. Don't hurt yourself. It's okay. HESH doesn't need to exist in your life. So overall, this is fantastic to see. Super happy that this is the first Devblog of the season, and I look forward to the rest if this is the standard we're going for, it's going to be a pretty fun update. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.